You're listening to the Inner Strength Show. If you want to step into your greatness, you've come to the right place. Here is your host, the human strength expert, Kyle Newell.
What's up, guys? It's Kyle Newell, back at you for episode number 2 with Unlocking Your Inner Strength. And I want to be upfront as we get into this episode, guys. I know a lot of this is going to seem raw and unpolished, and it is at this point. And yes, I'm a little nervous and scared and all that, but you got to step into your fear and put it in its place. I want to be a living example for you. And the whole premise of this show, if you have not listened to any of the previous stuff yet, is that we all have greatness inside of us, and we need to have that key or somebody to give us that key or those words of wisdom to unlock that greatness. And the whole mission in my life has been to inspire people to transform themselves. And let me be clear too on that word transform. Change is temporary. Transformation is permanent. And once you transform to a higher level of being and whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, you cannot go back. You can't regress back because you've been exposed to a new reality. And you can't hit the reset button on that. So transformation is a great thing. This is all about, stepping into your greatness. And I hope that through the course of our relationship, I could help you find fun, freedom, and fulfillment, the other F's. And those are the things that are going to lead to a life worth living. So with that in mind, today's episode, we're going to be talking about some of my athletic feats. Now, let me be clear, too. I am by no means a superior, genetically gifted athlete. I was always a good athlete, but I wouldn't say great. However, I took 2 different sports and I completely maxed out my mind and body in those sports. So this is what we're going to talk about today. And we're going to use this as an example, the stuff we can pull from these 2 circumstances for stuff that you can put to use right away and whatever it is you're trying to do in life, and realize that you can overachieve. So it's all about persistence, and part of that persistence is having a system for tracking your improvement and your evolution and overachieving. Okay? Overachieving is really a state of mind. Too many times we try to remain average or mediocre because that's what the common people alongside of us are doing. The worst thing in the world to be is average. I remember when I first heard that from one of my idols and role models, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I think I read it in his Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding book way back in the day. But that was another message or omen for me that you cannot be average. You cannot accept that. If you're average at something and you've really tried at it, it's not what you should be doing. We're going for extraordinary. To be extraordinary, you have to have a burning desire for what it is you're going to achieve or what it is you're going after. So going back to high school, we'll start with my basketball career. I was always a multi-sport athlete growing up, but basketball kind of eventually took over the leader of the race of what sport was my favorite. And being that I was a very introverted person, I still am a very introverted person. That's my personality type, and very shy if you don't know me. And so imagine in high school as you're going through that weird adolescent stage, not knowing where I really fit in, not being very popular, being petrified to go to parties or dances or to ask girls out on dates. I mean, heck, I didn't even have my first girlfriend until I was 20 years old, guys. So that fear of rejection. But trying to find a way in to almost show people that they could accept me or I could be great at something. And that the first tool for that for me was basketball or hoops. And I had a burning desire to be the best basketball player I could be. I wanted to play in college, and that's really besides the point of this episode. But I did have opportunities to play at some small colleges, and I passed them down because my life took a different path towards bodybuilding at that point. But I had a burning desire to be the best shooter that anybody in this area where I live had ever seen. And part of what stoked that fire was getting cut from an AAU team, I think 3 straight times. And keep in mind, this was before everybody had an AAU team, before your average player got to play AAU. This is when it was exclusive, and it was a dream of mine to make an AAU team. And I remember I used to go to the tryouts. They'd be in the spring, and let's say the tryout was a Wednesday, Thursday. I would literally sit in my bedroom Friday through Sunday night, watching basketball and waiting for the house phone to ring, because it's before cell phones. And I remember just not getting that call and being so let down. So eventually something snapped in me where I said, okay, don't leave it in their hands anymore. Give it everything you got. And if that doesn't work, then that doesn't work. But that's what you're going to do. So I had that burning desire to make an AAU team and to be the best shooter around. And I realized that to do that, I needed to have a plan. And my plan, primitive as it may be, was a system that I implemented for probably 2 straight years. End of my sophomore year, I believe, is when I started it. So going into that junior year. But I dedicated 2 hours at a minimum every single day to practicing basketball. When I said practicing, I wasn't just going to the park and kind of messing around with my buddies. I was sitting in my driveway, taking 500 jump shots a day. I still have the charts that I made way back in the day at my parents' house. They're probably up in the attic, but I know they're there. And I would have a column, and it would be numbered 1 through 25. And, I repeated that, 20 times. I would have 20 of those lines, so it would be 500. And I would take 25 jump shots from, let's say, the top of the key, so the top of a little beyond the paint, for those of you that aren't familiar with basketball, a little beyond the foul line. And I would mark off what shots I made from there, and I would record my percentage. So I would know, okay, at the top, from straight on, a straightaway shot, my percentage was whatever, let's say, 60%. And I would go to different spots on the court, and I would record, okay, which one is my weakest? What was my percentage for the day? And the next time I would start at my weakest spot. And I was trying to get everything up. So I was trying to make my weaknesses turn into my strengths. And for those of you that know anything about basketball, you know that side shot from the baseline where the backboard is not a factor, you can't see the back. I mean, you can see the backboard, but you're from the side, so there's nothing behind the basket when you're shooting from the side. That became one of my best shots as I developed my shot, and that's usually the hardest shot in basketball typically, because it was a weakness, and I just kept hammering it home. And having that plan in place of how I was going to do this paid off. What I mean by paying off was I did make the AAU team eventually. I actually got MVP of either 1 or 2 tournaments. That was an amazing, amazing feat for me, that I was able to achieve that. And I don't know where that trophy is or if I even still have it anymore, but it represented to me that you can make your dreams a reality. And it was just by having that plan. And part of that plan too, guys, it was being creative. Again, at a young age, I hired my first employee. I had one of the younger kids from the neighborhood. I paid him $2 and I think he helped me like twice a week, but I'd pay him $2 each time, and he would rebound to 500 shots for me and, pass it back out, and it really sped up the process. If you project further down into the future, fast forward to 2007, so about 10 years beyond that point, I'd gotten into bodybuilding, in the early part of the decade, but then I ran into some health issues, which we'll cover in great detail in one of the upcoming episodes because it's a really cool story that I think could benefit you. But in 2007, I decided, okay, I got to get out of this funk that I'm in and out of this depression, and I got to do another bodybuilding show. At that point, I had set the goal in my head to be the best natural bodybuilder in the world, meaning no steroids or anything of that nature. And it became my whole life for that year. And I mean, I had everywhere I looked, I had visualization stuff or positive imagery. And when it came time to do the show, I went above and beyond. It's just crazy when I look back. I actually made a documentary that I've never let anybody else see, but I've watched that video sometimes and it makes me tear up because, man, I was wearing 3 pairs of sweatsuits around the house, 3 layers, because I thought if I kept my temperature higher, I'd lose a little more fat. I was getting up at 4 in the morning. I was going to sleep at 11 at night, and I was doing, 4 hours of workouts a day. And my whole thing was nobody's going to outwork me. I'm going to leave it all on the table, and I'm going to commit to something, and I'm going to see it through. I have journals from back then, which, that's how I tracked my improvement. I would do morning pictures. I would do skin fold calipers. I would go to posing coaches, and I had a plan and a burning desire. And when you combine those two things, they're potent. And that year I did 2 shows back to back, and I actually won the first show, the only show I ever won. And the next week, I ran into somebody who became a good friend of mine later on named Tim Martin, who was one of the best bodybuilders in the world. And you know what, guys? When I got to the show that day, and I thought I had everything locked up and I would win, I saw Tim, and I knew in my heart and my mind, there's no way I can beat this guy. And I was okay with that because I did every single thing I could. I overachieved. It was probably the most successful show or 2-week span of my bodybuilding career. And it was all about having a plan and a burning desire and a system for tracking the improvement. Those things, when you combine them, they can take you out of the bell curve, that middle of the bell curve where you're living in mediocrity with other people that are okay with being content and being average and being mediocre. And they could propel you like rocket fuel out of that zone. So, those are some stories, and I'm sure I'll be bringing more to you from my athletic career as time goes on. But about how I overachieved and how I took a passion and I used it to learn every single thing I could about that pursuit at the time. And of course, the goals changed over time. Obviously, my goal now was, no longer to be the best bodybuilder in the world. That was a different time in my life, but I learned a lot, and it was the great memories. And I'll tell you what, too, guys, it wasn't the actual the end, okay? It wasn't the day of the bodybuilding show. It wasn't making the AAU team or getting the MVP trophy that I remember the most. It was the journey and the process of growing and becoming, a greater person than I was at the time of when I started those endeavors. It is really about the journey, and anything on the way to any goal that makes you unhappy tells you that you're on the wrong track, okay? Because the purpose of any goal is to improve or increase our happiness, and use that as your guidepost, just like from the previous episode that you can use resistance to know you're on the right track. Use your happiness gauge to know if you're on the right track or not of becoming what you want to become and what you want to do in your life. To recap, guys, repetition is the mother of all skill. You can repeat, and that ties into being a stubborn SOB. Repeat. All skills can be learned, okay? You need to be persistent, whatever it is you're approaching. And persistence doesn't mean you swing for the fences each time out. Move the chains one step at a time. Make one small improvement at a time. And you have to have a burning desire. And that burning desire will only be there if you're truly passionate about what you're doing. If you're just going through the motions and you're trying to do something because you think it's the right thing to do, if you're going to school to be a lawyer, and that's not really where your heart's at. You're just doing it because your friend did it, or your family are all lawyers. Then you're not going to ever truly succeed at it, because you're going to be fake at it. The burning desire only comes from something where we are trying to be our most authentic self. And it doesn't matter how many people you attract, because when you're your most authentic self, you're being true, and you're putting a footprint in the sand of the universe. Okay, and that's something that you can look back on at the end of your life and say, I had no regrets. I did it. And with that, though, having the burning desire and the persistence, you got to have a plan. The things that we don't track or don't measure, we cannot improve, because then it just becomes a guessing game. You need to have some way to measure what you're doing. And it might be how many lives you're impacting. It might be some concrete way to know that you're moving in the right direction. And to go back to those 3 F's, is your fun, is it there in life? Is your freedom there? Are you captive? Are you not able to break the chains of those golden handcuffs, which we'll talk about in an upcoming episode? Are you fulfilled in life? And that only comes from following and finding your life's purpose. Those are the keys to overachieving. And it's good to be an overachiever and want to be an overachiever, because we all have way more potential than we're giving ourselves credit for, or that we believe that we have. And I'll always tell you, I think you can be great. I know you can be great. I know you can achieve the wildest dreams you ever had. And don't let anybody ever tell you that you can't. On the next episode, episode 3, guys, we're going to be going over the importance of living and knowing your principles and your values in life. And it's actually a funny little, I guess you would call it, scene from my most recent grocery store trip, where, I went from, if it was an outsider looking in, I went from being, maybe looking like as a great person, to looking like an idiot, to looking like a great person. But even when I looked like an idiot, and you'll see what I'm talking about when we get to that episode, it wasn't because I was being mean-spirited or anything. It was because I was living to my principle and my values and we could have tons of principles in our lives to follow us. Values, we're going to have a few less, but your values are going to be your showing upwards. How do you want to show up in the world? So look for that on the next episode. And in closing, guys, part of what we were talking about today, having a plan, okay? A plan brings clarity to the process. And it's process before progress, okay? So a plan brings clarity, and if we don't have clarity, okay, and we're unclear about something, we're going to be in a threat mode, or we're going to be stressed out. The brain is a pattern recognition machine. It needs prediction and response. And that's what a system is. That's what a plan is. And remember, your systems are going to protect your dreams. They're going to keep your dreams alive. You can use these principles for whatever it is you're trying to achieve. And they're tried and true, and it's not like I came up with them. I'm just giving you examples of when I've used them in my life. If you set small, achievable goals and you try to +1, meaning come up with that one thing that you can do to move the chains forward today or tomorrow, and you keep doing that, and you believe in yourself, and you have that blind faith that you will succeed. There's no way that you cannot succeed in your endeavor. And I'm going to be that voice, and that voice on your shoulder that's going to keep helping you move you forward. And I'm honored that you listen to this. Again, I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I'll be back with episode 3. Peace out.
You've been listening to The Inner Strength Show. If you enjoyed the show, remember to subscribe, rate, and review us in iTunes.